our speaker, our lecturer today. I think it's not for me to speak a lot. It's time for Ms. Hazel. Thank you so much.
Terima kasih, Dr. Anas. Am I audible?
Yes, it's clear. The price is clear.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much. Okay, so allow me to do my screen sharing. Okay, but before anything else, okay, I would like to say thank you very much to UAD, especially for this special invite, especially to Professor Armam Rifai, who had been my constant, my constant text mate, especially in WhatsApp. Okay, and then to the president of UAD, to Dr. Anas, the moderator, and of course to the professors who are around, Professor Ratri and Professor Aurelia. Sorry if I mispronounce your names. And of course to our dear students who will be listening to my lecture this afternoon. Selamat siang.
Selamat siang,
so I hope that you
Hazel.
I hope that you will be learning something from me today. So excuse me. Okay, this afternoon I will be talking about translation, the different procedures, methods, and techniques used by our well-known authors, especially in rendering translation. You know what? Translation is a very interesting topic, yet very challenging. It requires skills, in-depth skills, in order for us to render a very good and faithful translations. But on the other hand, it is very helpful, especially in a multicultural setting. So through translation, we will promote understanding and, of course, appreciation of the different texts that we are going to read. But what is translation? Is my screen visible, sir?
It's visible, Mom.
Okay, thank you so much for the confirmation. All right, so our different authors had given their own rendition of the definitions of what translation is. So we have the famous translation of Hatim and Mandai in 2004. For them, translation is the process of transferring a written text from the source language to the target language. While Bell in 1991 defined translation as the replacement of a text in one language from an equivalent text in another language. So it is a replacement of one language by an equivalent text in another language. We have also another definition from the famous Peter Newmark. According to him, translation is the process of translating the meaning of the original text into a different one according to the author's intention. So again, it is rendering, translating the meaning of original text into a target language. And of course, we have also the definition of Ibrus. According to him, it is the process of interlingual communication. Not only two languages, but that interact, but it is a combination of two or more. So it is again a process of rendering another language to a target language. But it involves here two cultures. So these are the definitions of our, just to name a few, these are my favorite authors who render their translation of the meaning of what translation is. And according to Peter Newmark, there are 5 purposes of making translation. So first we have, it contributes to peace and understanding. So the first purpose of this is to promote understanding among people, or between groups and nations. Since we are a multilingual people, especially different countries have different languages. Even here in the Philippines, we have more than 107 languages in the whole Philippines. So we are also experiencing multilingual dilemma sometimes, because even though if you will just go to one province, you will have a different language. So the main purpose of translation is to promote peace and understanding among people. The second purpose is to render knowledge in a simple, correct, and accessible language. So that is one of the purpose according to Peter Newmark. While the third purpose according to him is that it explains and mediate between culture. So it explains and mediates between cultures, taking into consideration the humanity, showing regard to their positive characteristics, and implicitly showing their, or sometimes explicitly showing their characteristics. But this does not mean that every time the translation has to find a cultural equivalent. So not necessarily that every translation that we're going to render has an equivalent cultural equivalency. And the fourth is translate the world's best books. So this is the beauty of translation. Since the best books are written in different languages, through the help of translation, you can able to read and understand the books which are translated, especially in a universal language, for example, like English, or sometimes in our very own language. And of course, the last one, it is a general help necessary in learning. So this fifth purpose is a general help necessary among or necessary in learning a foreign language, especially in FL. So this is to give us an aid on how are we going to learn, especially if we are coming from a different country with different language and of course different perspectives. So these 5 purposes of translation are very helpful according to Peter Newmark, and these are considered to be our purpose. Why are we doing translation? The beauty of translation. And of course, according to Peter Newmark, there are different methods and translation procedures that we can apply in doing translation. So there is no best single translation method. So it depends on the situation, and it depends also on the text or the source language that we are trying to translate. So Peter Newmark has differentiated translation methods from translation procedures. So according to him, translation methods, it is relating to the whole text. So we are referring to the whole text, while translation procedures is used for sentences and smaller units of languages. So these are the differences between translation methods and translation procedures. But these two are very useful when we are rendering our translations. Okay, so we have here translation methods according to Peter Newmark. So I have here enumerated the different methods stated by Newmark. So these are actually considered to be timeless methods introduced to us by Peter Newmark in terms of translation. So we have here 8. So we have the word for word translation. We have the literal translation. We have the faithful translation. Then we have also semantic translation, adaptation. Then we also have here free translation, the idiomatic translation, and communicative translation. Okay, what do we mean when we speak of word for word translation? Actually, this is a translation in which the source language order is preserved. So the order or the sequence of the words in a sentence is preserved, and the words are translated individually by their most common meanings out of context. So we have here, for example, I go to church. So this is an English sentence. I go to church, translated into Filipino in our own language. Ako ay pumunta sa simbahan. I don't know how it is being translated in Indonesia. Okay, so you will notice that, okay, the order of the words are preserved. So I here is a pronoun which has an equivalent term in Filipino, which is ako. So I here is our subject and ako here is our subject also. Go is a verb and then its equivalent in Filipino language ay pumunta. Then to church, its equivalent language or words here in Filipino is sa simbahan. So simbahan is church. So you will notice that the order of the translation, the order of the language is preserved. So subject, then followed by the predicate. So the same sequence, structure of sentence for word translation. Then we have also here the literal translation. Okay, so the literal translation, the source language, grammatical constructions are converted to their nearest target language. Okay, to their target language equivalents, but the lexical words are still again translated individually out of the context. Okay, so example, te estoy, so this is a Spanish idiom, te estoy tomando el pelo. So this is literally translated in English as I'm taking your hair. Okay, so literal translation. The language grammatical constructions are converted to their nearest target language equivalents, but the lexical words are translated individually. Then we have also here faithful translation. Okay, when we speak of faithful translation, it tries to reproduce the precise contextual meaning of the original text within the constraints of the target language grammatical structures. So for example, our source language is I'll be stripper instead. So I have taken this from Kimchi 2017 and the target language. Okay, aku akan menjadi penari klub malam. Okay, sorry if I have a different intonation of the rendition of this translation, but this is an example of a faithful translation. It tries to reproduce a concise contextual meaning of the original text within the constraint of the target language, but still following the grammatical structures. Then we have also here semantic translation. Speaking of semantic translation, it differs from faithful translation, for it takes more into account the aesthetic value of the source language. So for the semantic translation, what is being valued here is the aesthetic concern of the language. The translation is concerned more on the author, while on the faithful translation, the concern or the focus is more on the effects to the readers. So for example, for our semantic translation, when translating the German sentence Beziger Hand, the semantic translation will be translated as dog that bites or biting dog. So you will notice that the content of the translation is the same as the original text, but the effect is not as good as the original one, because we are trying to value here the purpose of the author. Our concern is more focused on the author. Then we have the communicative translation. This kind of translation tries to render the exact contextual meaning of the original text in such a way so that both content and language are readily acceptable and comprehensible to the readers. So we have here an example. The German sentence, for example, Hand again, in communicative translation, will be translated into beware of the dog, or beware of this dog. So that is the communication of this German sentence. So we are trying in a communicative translation, we are focusing on the exact contextual meaning of the original text. Then we have also here adaptation. So when we speak of the adaptation, it is considered to be the freest form of translation, meaning we can do this. We are free of our style, and it is mainly used for plays, comedies, and poetry. So you will notice that sometimes the text or the novels, the poetry that you are reading are just adaptations from the other original text. So sometimes it's written in Latin, or for example in like, let's say Hebrew, for example, Latin, Spanish, or something like that. So if we are going into the adaptation of that, usually the one that we are reading are in English adaptation. So it has been translated already. And adaptive or adaptation strategy of translation is used for this particular purpose. Then we have the free translation. From the word free, so meaning it produces the target language text without any style at all, form or content of the original. So you don't have style, so you are just free to translate it. Okay, so for example, here we have, there is an orangutan in the Bandung Zoo. If you are going to translate that, okay, ada orangutan di sebuah kebun binatang di Bandung. Okay, so this is also a free translation. So you are not looking into the style of the author. You are not looking into the form of the author used, but you are free to render your own translation as long as the content is there, as long as it can be understood by your readers or by your target audience. Then we have idiomatic translation. When we speak of idiomatic translation, it produces the message of the original text that tends to distort the tones of meaning by preferring a mean to colloquialisms and idioms where these do not exist in the original text. So idiomatic. So for example, the English idiom to carry coals to Newcastle. So this idiom means something has been brought or sent to a place where it is already plentiful. So this idiom can be translated into Arabic as Yabeya Maye Fehare Asakayan, meaning in English to sell water in the district of water sellers. Okay, so this is again a very nice translation of an idiomatic expression coming from Abdillah and Al-Azawi, 2016. So this is the best example of how an idiomatic translation has been rendered. Still, it produces the message of the original text. So you will notice that although there is a different style, there is a different rendition of translating, yet the main purpose is still to reproduce the original message into the target language. Our main purpose is to produce or reproduce the message from the original text into our target language, from our source language into our target language. All right. And now, okay, so if you'll notice, those are our eight translation methods according to Peter Mark. And then naturalization. We have cultural equivalence. Then we have the other one here, functional equivalence. Descriptive equivalence or equivalent is just the same. Then we have the synonymy. Another and of course, we have here the recognized translation, the paraphrase translation, and the compensation translation. So these are the different translation procedures presented by Peter Newmark in his book. So we will discuss them one by one. When we speak of translation procedure, his first procedure was called transference. Transference, it is the strategy using, it is the strategy using which the translator makes use of the source text transliteration, and is the same as what Harvey named as transcription. So this is the same as transliteration. Okay, we have here an example for your transference. We have here the name, for example, a Persian name, Jamshid, is transferred into English as Jamshid without any changes. Jamshid in Persian, and in English it is also called as Jamshid. So the same lang. It is the same, just a little bit alteration in terms of pronunciation, but still the same. So that's for the transference. Then we have naturalization. Okay, so when we speak of naturalization, it changes the source language word to its pronunciation, then to the target language morphology or original form. Naturalization usually entails adding new affixes to the foreign terms. So we are adding here affixes. So it adopts the source language word first to the normal, or natural pronunciation. Then we try to add morphology or word forms here. So example, we have here deserter in English is translated into deserter with the target language morphology in Indonesian. Okay, so you have it there. So that's naturalization. Then we have cultural equivalence. So when we speak of cultural equivalent, it is an inaccurate cultural words substitution of source language, our SL, with our TL, or our target language. The source language cultural word is translated into target language cultural word. Sorry for that. The translation is only the approximate. So when we are doing cultural equivalence, we are only using sometimes approximate for that. And let us remember that not all culture-bound words can be translated. So those CBT or culture-bound terms have no equivalency in target language or in other languages, because that language is unique from that culture alone. So what are we going to follow? If that's the case, we have to use the source language, and then we have to put it or write it in an italics or italicize the words, and then maybe we can give a meaning to that. So in order for our target reader to have a bird's eye view of the meaning of that particular culture-bound term. So for our, if the CBT, if the culture-bound term has no equivalency in other language. So we have here an example, the Night's Watch English. Okay. So the Night's Watch is the name of an organization, is translated into Indonesian Garda Malam. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Okay, so I have researched this from the study of Asmerani and Valencia 2016. Okay, so that is their cultural translation of the Night's Watch in English into Indonesian language. Then we have the functional equivalence. The functional equivalent uses more neutral cultural words with a new specific term. This is the most accurate way to translate a cultural word. And then when we speak of functional equivalence, we have also to remember that cultural words requires the use of a culture-free word, sometimes with a new specific terms, or therefore sometimes neutralizes or generalizes the source language word. So it requires the use of culture neutral word when we are doing the functional equivalence or equivalent. So we are trying to use here the culture neutral word, neutral lang, so that it will not be biased to our target language and it will not be also biased with our source language. Okay, like for example here, the English word pickpocket is translated into tukang kopet. Okay, so is this really, I just would like to know if this is the correct translation for this.
It's tukang copet. Copet.
Copet. My pronunciation is only different. Okay, sorry for the mispronunciation. Okay, so the pickpocket in Filipino, we call that the pickpocket as the dinukot yung yung pitaka, for example, something like that. Okay, so it has a different rendition again. But this one, this is a very good, pickpocket is a very good example of a functional equivalence for it. If you'll notice that pickpocket has two morphemes, right? Okay, so pick and pocket, then you have also here tukang kopet, two words. And pickpocket is also composed of two words, pick and pocket. Okay, so functional. Then we have the descriptive equivalence. The descriptive equivalent is the meaning of the cultural words explained in few words. So the descriptive equivalence has to be weighed against function. So it is different from a functional translation. In this procedure, the meaning of the culture-bound term is explained in several words, meaning there is no exact or concrete word, one word that would replace the source language. And what are the translator doing here is that they are trying to explain the words. They are trying to add few words to explain the meaning of such word. Example here, destrier is translated into kudaperang destrier. Kudaperang as the description of destrier. Okay, I am not particular of the enunciation of this. Okay, Miss Ma'am Sanya.
Kuda
Can you read?
Kuda perang.
Perang.
Parang. Okay. So I have a different different reading of your language. Sorry for that. Okay. But I am into the meaning, the content, the semantic important in the text for the synonymy. Okay. So it is used for a source language word where there is no clear equivalent and there is and the word is not important in the text. Example here, we have the English word souvenir is translated into, is it ole ole?
Yes.
In
Yes po, ma'am.
Indonesia.
It's ole-ole.
Okay. In Filipino, we called the souvenir, the English word souvenir is also souvenir, but the
Pasalubong.
spelling is different. Yeah, the spelling is different here in the Philippines, especially in our Filipino souvenir. But in English, it's souvenir. Here in Filipino, we have the different, the same, almost the same pronunciation, but we have a different spelling for that word. Okay, then we have through translation. So through translation is the literal translation of common collocations. Like for example, names of organizations and components of compound components. So for example, here, United Nations in English is translated into Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa in Indonesia, or Indonesian word. However, in Filipino, it is, in our own language, we call that mga nagkakaisang bansa in Filipino. So mga nagkakaisang bansa. So we have a different translation for this. But this one is a very good example for your through translation in Indonesian language. Then we have shifts, or we call this transposition. Shifts or transposition are an instant change of grammar from the source language to the target language. There are actually 4 types of shifts or transposition in this procedure, according to Newmark. So the change from singular to plural, the change when a specific source language structure does not exist in the target language, when literal translation is possible but not appropriate for the target language, and then in the replacement of a lexical gap with a grammatical structure. So there is what we call change from singular to plural in forms. So for example, we have here the English word sentence, welcome to my house. In Indonesian, we have here, selamat datang di rumahku. Okay. So this is an example of shifts or transposition. So the word welcome in English is only one word, but when translated into Indonesian language, it became selamat datang, a phrase. Okay. So there is now changes in terms of its structure. Then we have another kind of procedure. We have here the modulation. Speaking about modulation, it occurs when the translator reproduces the message of the original text in the target language in conformity with the current norms of the target language. Since the source language and target language may appear dissimilar, not the same, in terms of perspective. So we have here, for example, the dog bites the cat. So this is an English sentence which is translated into Filipino. Ang pusa ay kinagat ng aso. In our language, ang pusa ay kinagat ng aso. The English sentence is active, but is in active voice. But when translated in Filipino, it becomes passive. So the translation is now different, having different view point, though the meaning is the same, but the original what we mean here, the structure again, the norms might appear different. So the dog bites the cat. So ang pusa ay kinagat ng aso. So this is again a type of another procedure for making translation. Then we have the recognized translation. Speaking of this, the recognized translation, it appears when the translator uses the authentic or the proper translation of any institutional term. So usually for the recognized translation, we're just borrowing the term. Okay, for example, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI in English is translated into FBI also in Indonesian. Then we have here compensation. Compensation, it occurs when the loss of meaning, sound effect, metaphor, or the pragmatic effects in one part of a sentence is compensated in another part. Like for example, the English, okay, term a lot of. So a lot of are translated into banyak. Okay, so banyak, that is also an Indonesian term. Okay. So that's for compensation. Then paraphrase or paraphrasing. Paraphrase appears when the cultural word's meaning is explained in a more detailed manner. So we paraphrase, we do the paraphrasing. Well, okay, we are referring again here to culture words, culture-bound words. So for example, we have here Golden Gate in English is translated into Golden Gate adalah selatiang menghubungkan Teluk San Francisco dan Sumatera Pacific. Okay, I just could not necessarily pronounce these terms, but okay, that is an example of paraphrasing. Translated, it is explained in a more detailed way when you are doing the paraphrasing. If you cannot grasp the exact word for the target language, you can do this one. You can have a detailed explanation of the word. So or especially for novice or beginning translators. Okay, so those are the different procedures, translation procedures by Newmark. And I have here also researched translation techniques coming from Molina and Albier 2002. So actually somewhat like the same, but okay, you can do this in small unit of languages or small sentences. So you have here adaptation, usually used when something specific culturally in one language occurs, and then the translator cannot find its equivalent in the target language. Like for example, the word Friday, okay, the Spanish word or the Spanish word or phrase Friday the 13th. Okay, so in English it is Friday the 13th, but when you are going to translate that in Spanish, they call that usually Martes de 13. Martes de 13. Okay. And for this one, Sipotis Salju becomes Sipotis Susu because Salju is not available in Indonesia. Is that right? Okay, so
It's only
Salju
in
yes, sir. Okay, so I don't know if this word, okay, I have researched this. So is Salju not available in Indonesia? Indonesian language?
It is.
Yes,
It
it's not
is,
available.
okay. But are you using this term, moms and sirs?
Astri knows more.
Seperti susu, yes.
Are you using
But it could, sorry, it could be more acceptable if we use Capiz, putih Capiz.
Okay, Capiz, okay.
Yeah.
So a different rendition again, so adaptation. So you can use another term instead of susu. Is that right, Dr. Anas? Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, so that's only one technique in doing translation. There are so many techniques we are going to use later on in your own rendition. So amplification, it introduces or adds details, information that are not formulated in the source text. So not formulated. Like for example, when translating the Arabic word Ramadan, it is being added by Muslim month of fasting. We will say Ramadan, okay, is a Muslim month of fasting. So instead of just saying Ramadan, Okay, but from the Arabic, they are still trying to add, okay, the words Muslim month for fasting. So that's amplification, or trying to introduce more details, somewhat like paraphrasing also. Then borrowing, taking a word or expression straight from another language. So you are doing borrowing. You can borrow in two different ways. You can do the pure borrowing, and you can have the naturalized borrowing. So when we speak of pure borrowing, it is completely taking the terms directly from the source language. So for example, the word flash disk in English language becomes flash disk also in Indonesian. Is it correct?
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Yes, thank you, sir, for that. And then how about the English word bulldoze? Okay, are you also using this term, sir? In Philippines, you are also using this.
Bulldozer. French
English
bulldozer.
word bulldoze
Yeah.
has been, bulldozer. Okay, has been used in many languages. But the spelling is different here in the Philippines. It has the same pronunciation, yet the spelling differs. Okay, then we have the naturalized borrowing. Takes directly the terms or the other words from source language by naturalizing the spelling into the target language, into TL. So we have here example in our language. The English sentence, he buys a computer. In Filipino, translated into siya ay bumili ng computer. Sorry for the error, there is no siya. Siya ay bumili ng computer. Okay, only one siya. He buys a computer into the Membeli computer. Okay, so you have there for the naturalized borrowing. And then we have description. Replaces a term or expression with description of its function. So we're trying to describe the function of the word. So ketupat, as traditional Indonesian food eaten on, is it lead? Okay, so male clubhouse is translated. Id. Okay, that's the pronunciation. Then the male clubhouse is translated into tempat berkumpul para pemuda. Okay. Is the translation faithful to its meaning, sir? In most?
Yeah, I guess so. It's very common.
Yeah, description. So trying to describe the male clubhouse as a place where young people gathered. Okay, so that's for the description. Then we have also usually this technique, this descriptive or description technique replaces a term or expressions with a description in its form or its function in the source target language, source text, I mean, to make it clear into the target language. So that's usually for our description. Then we have the calque. Calque, this is a literal translation of a foreign word or phrase. It can be lexical or structural. Like for example, Prime Minister translated into Malay, Perdana Menteri. While the English term normal school translated into Spanish as Escuela Normal. Okay, so literal translation. It's somewhat like a literal translation, but it is focused more on the lexical or structural aspect of the word. So we call it calque. Then we have generalization. As a technique, according to Molina and Alvear, it uses the neutral term or the general term. For example, the word bikak translated into vehicle, the French word gâcher into window. So that's for the generalization. We're trying to give the general meaning of a particular thing or word. Then we have modulation. This technique changes the point of view in relation to the source text. It can be lexical or it can be structural, but it is focused more on the cognitive category. So for example, here we have, you're going to have a grandchild. Instead of saying directly, you're going to be a grandfather. So instead of saying you are going to be a grandfather, you can say you try to make a technique, you try to make a modulation on that. Instead of directly saying grandfather, but you will say going to have a grandchild. Okay, I cut my finger into Jericho Tersayat. Okay, so that's an example for the modulation. Then for the compensation, for our compensation, it introduces or replaces elsewhere an element or stylistic effect, okay, from another place in the target language or target text. It cannot be reflected in the same place as in the source text. So we have here an example. The problem of translating nuances of formality, Okay, so the example, the problem of translating nuances of formality from languages that use forms such as Spanish informal tu and formal usted in English, which only has you, okay, and expresses degrees of formality in different ways. That's for the compensation. So we are into the stylistic effect again of the element. Then we have discursive creation. When we speak of discursive creation, this technique is used to establish a temporary equivalent that is totally unpredictable. Okay, example, the Spanish translation of the film Rumblefish as La Ley de la Calle. Our English translation of the famous book written by one of our heroes, Jose Rizal, El Filibusterismo. It is translated in English as The Reign of Greed. And then the English translation again for Rizal's book, Noli Me Tangere, into English is Touch Me Not. So these are discursive creations. Then we have established equivalent. This technique uses the term or expression that is recognized by dictionaries or language in use as an equivalent in the target language. So we can make use of our dictionary for this as our consultant. Our source language, for example, is it's just school lingo. So our target language, if we will translate that into a certain target language, ito hanya estela sikula. Okay, so that's for the established equivalent or equivalency. So in this case, the word lingo means a specific term or expression that is usually used by students in a school. So in the target language, the word estela refers to the word or specific expressions in that particular example. Then we have the linguistic amplification. It adds some linguistics elements, same with the previous one. So this is often used in consecutive interpreting and dubbing. So this is usually used in dubbing. So it is an opposition to linguistic compression. While linguistic compression, on the other hand, it synthesizes linguistic elements in the target text. This is often used in simultaneous interpreting and in subtitling. Okay, this is an opposite of linguistic amplification. Usually, linguistic amplification is applied in making interpretations, especially in film or in making dubbing. Then we have here literal translation. From the word literal, it starts from word-for-word translation and then makes changes to the conformity of the source language grammar with our target language grammar. For example, here the source language is I will call you. Our target language is saya akan meneleponmu, and then the book is buku. Okay. In Filipino, book is libro. All right. So we have, okay, the other translation technique, still from Molina and Albir, variation. This technique changes linguistic or paralinguistic elements, meaning the intonation and the gestures that affect the aspects of the linguistic variation of the words. So it changes the textual tone, the style, and this geographical dialect, for example. So we have here, okay, so variation. Okay, another is we have the transposition. So changes source text, grammatical category in the target text. So for example, from verb to noun or phrase to words. So this technique, transposition, is used because the grammatical structure of the language systems are often different in other languages. So we have different grammatical structure. One language may have a different structure or grammatical structure compared with the other one. Okay. So we have here shot translated into minimbak. Okay, so that's also a sample for the transposition technique. Okay, another here. He will soon be back. Translated into Spanish as no tardará en venir, meaning changing the adverb soon for the verb tardar. Instead of keeping the adverb and writing estará devuelto pronto. Okay, so that's for the transposition. Then we have here substitution. This technique again is used by many linguists, especially when you are doing the linguistic, when you are considering the linguistic elements or paralinguistic elements of the words, in the intonation, the gestures. Like for example, the Filipino gesture, mano po. Okay, so this is our unique culture. The Filipino gesture, the mano po, literally translate into your hand. Okay, as our greeting, especially the younger one to the older. So instead of saying mano po, we just sometimes get the hand of the elders and then touch the back of the hand of the elder into our forehead. So we are doing like this. Okay, the hand is being like that. So mano po. So sometimes instead of saying mano po, but the gesture will do that one. So substitution. So that can be also. Okay, but you can make a description of how is mano po being done if you are going to translate that into your own language or to a different target language. Okay, then we have here particularization. So when we speak of particularization, this technique uses a more precise or concrete term. Like for example, when translating air transportation into aeroplano in Filipino and helicopter in Indonesian language. Okay, so when we speak of air transportation, what comes into our mind is usually aeroplano, not helicopter. But in Indonesian, air transportation, what comes to your mind? Is it helicopter or aeroplano too? Airplanes.
It's different, right?
Yes.
Helicopter and pesawat terbang.
Yeah, pesawat. No.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Pesawat terbang.
Yeah, thank you for
Atau
that.
ini, sorry, this is transportasi udara we can use equivalent as established. But
Okay.
equivalent established is okay. Yeah, maybe you can use helicopter. Yes, of course. Yeah. Because
But,
based on this
okay.
technique kind of this technique. Okay.
Okay, in Philippines, we
Got
do,
it.
when we speak of air transportation, what comes into our mind is airplane, aeroplano. We do have also here helicopter, but helicopter is usually being used by our rich people, our our high officials, our highly ranked officials in the government. So when they are visiting, for example, a different place, instead of riding in an airplane, but they will be using a helicopter. Okay, so that's okay. So that's why It is we seldom associate air transportation into helicopter. What really comes in our mind is aeroplano, airplanes. Okay, thank you for that, sir. Thank you for the info. Okay, so we have here another example. These are examples I have researched also from the researchers. Actually, they are Indonesian researchers. Okay, so our text here. Okay, who can read this one? I have a very hard time reading this. Okay, who can read from our students, from our very good students here? Any volunteer, please?
Atul, mungkin Mbak Sani dibacakan, Mbak. Atau siapa yang ada, Nunun? Yudi?
Yeah, anyone can read.
Yudi? Nggak ada semua.
Okay, let me read this. Yeah.
Mas Yanto.
Komunikasi. Okay, no problem. Me will read this. Komunikasi merupakan sebuah proses dalam mana seseorang atau beberapa kelompok dan menciptakan menggunakan informasi agar terhubung dengan lingkungan dan orang lain. Orang, organisasi, masyarakat, dan okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anas. Okay, so that is the original text. And then, okay, so there are different versions of how this text is being, or this source text is being translated. So we have the translator A here. His translation for this is that communication is a process in which someone or some people, groups, organizations, and communities create and use information to connect with the environment and the others. Then another translation here. Okay. Communication is a process when someone, some people, groups, organizations, and communities create and use information to connect with the environment and others. Okay. So this is the translation, the rendition of translator A and translator B. Who do you think had the better translation? Is it translator A or translator B? So this is the translation of, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, translate example 1, translator A. Then translator B. That is his rendition of the source text. So if you're going to yes, sir.
If you can display in the same slide, we can compare A and B.
Oh, yeah, but I did not display it in the same slide because of the size. Okay, so yeah, for the translator A. Okay, anyway, that's for example purposes. So the phrase dalamana, okay, dalamana, ayan, dalamana, okay, basically means keteka. Is that right? So translator A here, translate dalamana as in which, the phrase in which is incorrectly translated to effectively convey the message of the source text into the target language. Actually, according to Dr. H.J. Fareda Repelata, okay, he said that translator A should not follow the grammatical structure of the source text, like someone or some people or groups. That's according to his explanation, and organizations and communities. However, according to him, translator B, on the other hand, follow the correct grammar of the target language. So this is the letter, okay, translation B. So according to him, the translator B followed the correct grammar of the target language. Someone, some people, groups, and organizations, and communities by omitting or. So he omits the conjunction or and adding the conjunction and to sound more naturally. So that is the explanation of Dr. H.J. Fareda. Okay, so this was taken from his research, published research. So that is an example of him. And then we have another example, example number 2. So we have there, okay, perekonomian suatu daerah yang tumbuh dengan tinggi akan memperbesar daya serap, tenaga kerja serta mampu digunakan untuk, okay, please excuse me for my diction, mengurang jumlah pengangguran yang ada. Okay, so this was translated by translator A in English as the economy of a region that grows high will increase the absorption of labor and be able to be used to reduce the number of unemployed. Translator B did have this rendition. The high economy rate of a region will increase the employment rate and reduce the number of unemployment. All right. So, according again to Dr. H.G. Farida, translators should be able to choose the most equivalent word to express, meaning we have to choose again for the best equivalency of the word to express the message of the author in the target text effectively. Indonesia and English have great differences in cultural backgrounds. Words may have different connotation, and the social customs vary according to many aspects. So when translating Indonesia to English, he said translator must pay or should pay attention to the differences between Indonesia and English culture. So we have to consider the culture. In other words, the translators should consider about the context and the equivalent of the words in the target text. So we have to consider the culture of the two nations, for example, the differences between the two, the English and in Indonesia. So what he's trying to convey here is that when we are doing our rendition of translation, we have to be in depth first with the culture. So we must have a deep depth background of the culture of the target language that we are trying to have. And of course, we have also to consider the differences between the two. So you have to learn first the culture before you can render a faithful translation, especially when we are referring to the culture. So we have to be very careful of our choice of words when we are doing the rendition of our translation. So in the above text, according to him, translator A translate the text word by word. He also follows the structure of the source text, while translator B translate the text by following the structure of the target language, English. He follows the structure of the English language. So translator B translates tumba as improve, menriap tenaga kerja as increase the employment rate. So this example shows that translator chooses the best equivalent of the source text in the target text. So it is again translator B who had a better rendition of the translation from Indonesian to the English language. Then we have, okay, number 3 here. Okay, now it's good that I have made it into one slide. Okay, so we have here, okay, the number 3 example, sebuah media dapat mewakili kekurangan guru dalam proses, am I right? Pembelajaran. All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so translator A said a media can represent a lack of teachers in the learning process, while translator B said here media can support the teaching and learning activities in the classroom. Okay, so which do you think has the better rendition of the translation? Which
B.
is easy to understand? It's letter B.
B.
Okay, so in the above, so in the said translation, okay, it can be seen that translator A translate the source text literally, correct, word by word. Okay, so translator A translate the word kekarungan guro as lack of teachers, which literally means correct. However, the real message of the source text is not about the lack of teachers according to him in the classroom, but it is more about the teaching and learning process. So therefore, translator B translate the text better than translator A. So very good. So you are very keen in making observations who did have the best translation or better translation. Okay, so maybe because you have a very good background or a deep background of the Indonesian culture. So that's why you know who is having the better translation than, okay, the translator A. All right. Okay, so we have here. Okay, so those are actually the different exercises that we have for in identifying which has a better translation. Okay, so I have here. Okay, this was taken from Ali 2022, and this was also a product of the research. The basic translation skills required for novice are beginner translators. So there are actually 5 basic skills that we have to master when we are doing the translation, and we can have that as an acronym as RCRO. So R, reading, okay, so reading comprehension skills. Reading actually a text is an act of translation. So reading alone is already an act of translation. So when we read, we do not just store the words read in our mind as what happened with the data inserted in a keyboard or a scanner into a computer. So actually we forget, diba? We really forget sometimes the words that we're reading. So the reading process necessitates the knowledge and getting trained in topic sentences. So we connect words, phrasal verbs, and etc. when we are doing the reading. So reading comprehension must be developed first for us to become a good translator, or for us to have the basic skills required for beginning translators. So we have to read and read. We have to be voracious readers. Okay, so the reading process is really very important when we are trying to render later on translation of the different texts, because if we keep on reading and reading, we are equipped with the different words, different vocabularies, especially from other cultures, especially from other nations, or from other languages. So this can help us in trying to grasp the correct words later on when we are doing the translation. So we should be very keen on that. So we have to develop first a in-depth reading comprehension skills. Then we have researching skills. It is the most prevalent and still vague, as the article suggests that the dictionary is known to both speaker and hearer. This wide range of dictionaries suggests that it is no single dictionary that the translator is supposed to refer to, but we have to research, search and search and search. So we can read research articles, we can consult dictionaries, and good thing now that we have this online Google Translate. It's just on the tip of our fingers. We will just key in the words, then we will be provided with a different translation. However, sometimes you have to be very careful of the translation provided in the Google or online, especially Google Translate or any apps, because sometimes the original structure of the text is distorted. Likewise, the meaning is also distorted. Specifically, if the rendition of the translation is done literally. Okay, so another skill is the analytical skills. So these are the skills that we have to master. Translation calls for analysis and synthesis. So for us to have a faithful translation, we must know how to analyze the meaning that is being conveyed by the text and how to synthesize those so that we can translate that into the target language. So the translator scrutinizes the source language with the purpose of fully comprehending. So you have to make analysis here. You have to synthesize. You are not just simply reading, but you have to understand what you are reading. So the amalgamation phase here in analytical skills occurs when the source language is known to the reader. So it will be very good if it is known to the reader. So the notion is that the translator thinks of the typical readership that lies in the meta text. So the text can be decoded in different ways. So you can have the miniature analysis of the actual test. Then you can also have the search consistency and adhering. So you can do the different ways on how to analyze the text. So it depends on your style and on how you analyze. You can read, you can do the loud reading or oral reading, you can do the silent reading, you can do the skimming, you can do the scanning. So it's up to you. Whichever is that will make you comfortable. And then we have also the writing skills. So reading, then reading comprehension, analysis, researching, then it's now time for you to write. So translator, after finalizing your interpretive work, you have to, of course, you have to set impressions caused by the text awareness, and that is now you're going to put that into writings. So you have to put that into writings. Therefore, when you translate, you must also have the skills in writing. So not just only reading, but you have also the ability to write, to express. Okay, so we have here another skills. We have the computer skills. Since we are living in an era of technology, it is very important that we must have the ICT skills. As I said, if we could not grasp the correct word, we can consult online. There are so many available translator apps online. But what we're going to do, we have to analyze, we have to read if the meaning is not distorted. So you have here, so literacy does not only mean reading and writing nowadays. Literacy means you're able to search information in a website. So that would also mean computer skills, so ICT skills. Okay. Those are the things that we are going to remember. And of course, the computing skills. Okay. All right, so those are the things, computer skills and then the computing skills. Okay. So these are the skills that we must master, especially those who are beginning translators, are beginners. And these are the things that we have to keep in mind when we are doing translation. First, translation is both an art and a science. So it is both an art and a science. So it is an art of writing, but it calls also steps on how to do it. It calls also for the correct translation procedures, correct techniques, and correct methods to be used when you are doing the translation. And the second one is the translator must be familiar with the culture of the original text and the culture of the intended reader. So it is not only that you will be familiar with your own culture, but you also be familiar with the culture of the intended reader, especially of your target language. So familiarity of the culture. And it is also remembered that not all culture-bound terms have specific equivalency or equivalent words. So therefore, we can do different techniques on how we're going to deal with those CBT words, culture-bound terms. Then the third one, the translator should be aware of the readership. Before you translate, know your readers first. You must know who are your audience. Who are your audience? Okay, and then the dictionary is the translator's friends. Let us always consult dictionary if we are not aware of the meaning of the word, especially of the forms, the origin, or the etymology of the word. And then the last one, language cannot be translated word for word, meaning not all the words can be translated word for word or literally translated. All languages have idiomatic expressions which carry connotations that are above and beyond the meanings of the separate words themselves. So those are the things that we are going to keep in mind when we are doing translation, especially for our beginners, for our students here. So always remember that there is no best method or procedure or technique that can be applied in a particular or in general when we are doing the translation. But okay, it depends on the type of text or this source text that you are going to translate. So one technique may not be applicable with the other one, or one method may not be applicable with all. So you have to be very careful of that. And students, let's keep on reading and reading and reading. So reading can make us well adept of the different culture, the different words, and of course, in doing the translation, especially if it entails to different culture. All right, so that's all. Thank you for your indulgence. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your active participation in this presentation. So I hope you have refreshed your mind with those techniques coming from Peter Newmark. Actually, they are my favorite authors. Okay, so and their work is quite easy to understand. So there are so many different. Let's remember there are so many different techniques, but it depends again on our purpose and of course on the type of text that we are translating. So thank you everyone and have a good day.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hazel.
Okay, can I stop sharing now, Dr. Anas?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I almost forgot to greet my special teacher here when I was in my bachelor, Mr. Ifai. Do you remember me?
Always on the times on my life.
Oh, yeah, we make it casual, okay? Yeah, Mr. Pak Surono also, yeah. Pak Surono came also to my sidang pembuka, yeah, for my doctoral. And also Pak Cipto. Where are you, Pak Cipto? How are you? Yeah, sorry, I little forgot to greet. Okay, okay, Mr. Pai. No.
We have
Yeah.
also Bu Astri and Bu
Oh yeah. So sorry that
Ratri.
yeah, I didn't find Miss Astri maybe when I was my bachelor. It was in 2006.
Yeah, was new. No,
Yeah.
I
So
mean
just
one
me,
in 2015.
All right, yeah. And 2006 and 2010. 7 semester finish. for bachelor. Okay. So how about the participants about translation? Is it easy, unique, interesting, or what? Maybe it is so interesting because when we discuss about like Ibu Hazel, to give an example, this is how translation is interesting. Why? Because in a language, behind a language, we find a culture. And it's not easy to transfer the culture. So that's why Miss Hazel really likes Peter Newmark, because Peter Newmark really concerns on the cultural transference. And yeah, we found the term, there's a method, there's a strategy, maybe a technique, procedures, and once more, there's an ideology. How can the method come? Now, it's based on what ideology. And Mr. Hajar said that what is our purpose to translate something? This is apprentication or domestication. And we find the left pole or right pole, like what is it, adaptation or fights again word for word translations. And it comes to the semantic translation and comes to the communicative translation. If we want to focus on how the student understands, how our target language understand a lot, it's mean that we used the method that really concern on target text or target language, like we use what is it, adaptation or until communicative translation. And opposite, if you are really faithful to your source language, you will use word for word maybe, but it's so strange, yeah, like killing two birds with one stone, yeah, membunuh dua burung dengan satu batu. It's meaningless in bahasa, but we have sekali dayung dua pulau terlampaui. It's mean now we use a communicative translation. Yeah, this is very interesting, but based on my history, my experience, translation is difficult, not as easy
Yes, sir.
as
It's very
we did.
difficult.
Yeah, translation is very difficult, but no problem. How to make it interesting for us? Yeah, just try, and we follow that our source has over a lot about method, strategy, and technique. Even has been clearly stated by Molina and Albir. It's different terms because sometimes it's overlapping each other. And then, but it's okay. Today we find that is the technique. But sometimes technique or procedures, when we on the practice, the translation, we forgot to apply that because of what? One method or strategy, whatever we can say. Once more, we forgot that now technology super, Google Translation. Yeah, sometimes all people use this to just say about the translation, but they are not faithful. They are just about the pragmatism, it's called. But this is translation is very interesting, unique, and of course it's difficult. Need to dynamic. Yeah, it's called by Molina. It's dynamic. Okay, and this is about the point. The logic comes. This is a method based on the Ms. Hazel said that ideology comes from foreign and domestication, and it comes a method in general macro aspect of translation process that we have from adaptation to word for word translation, or even first in the opposite. And then we come to the procedures and technique. This is sometimes quite ambiguous. But for us, like in our research in 11 Maret University, because Ms. Hazel, we have like concentration for the special translation research that we apply Molina Albir. We apply here from Molina to research about the product of translation. It's rarely the student here to focus on function or on process translation research. We focus on the product, we analyze based on the product, and we apply the Molina Albir being the case of analysis, where about the term they use, like what technique they use, and then we measure about the quality based on three aspects: and accuracy, acceptability, and readability. And that's the point. But it's okay now for the beginner. Shall we call? We are here is the beginner. This translation is a process, and of course about experience, and that they're very clear and good what to be needed as a translation, as stated by Ms. Hazel in the last, that we have competence. We improve our reading skill. We must improve about computing, computer technology. It's of course we can apply another. Now is we can use like a dictionary, English like Oxford Dictionary through online, through computer. Not only but look at the draft or the hard file. Easier. So now I think translation is easier to do, but to get what is the best translation. We don't call that translation wrong or bad, or wrong or right, but which one is clear, good or better or bad. Okay. Now it's that is the summary. Okay. And then we're going to the question and answers. How many participants who can give the question? We have a limitation or a limit?
As long as we can have until 4 p.m.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think it's better coming from the student. Yeah, Mr. Rifai, this is all the students in bachelor or mix with a master's?
I think it's mixing.
Okay. But I think there's Azan in over there.
Yeah. Again.
So we stop, or I think just in because Mr. If I in campus, yeah, it's look like it's campus. Okay, but okay, maybe the other they are still in boarding house and anywhere, yeah. Okay, we open the first session to have questions for Ms. Hazel. I mean, the teacher, lecturers also okay, yeah, to start maybe. Yeah, the UAD
Hello,
lecturer, if I
sir.
have a question. Okay,
Hello, ma'am.
Miss
So,
Mbak Saniatul, yeah.
yeah, so sir, actually we will have a question and answer section, and you will also lead the question and answer.
Okay.
And here we already had one question here in the room chat. And
yeah. Oh, okay. Should I read?
If you have a question about Hazel, you can raise your hand or also directly type it in the chat room. Time is yours, sir, to lead also the question and answer.
Okay, hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a question that I will read this, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hello, man. Okay, this is from Aulia Hidayati. Is when you have some question about what is the differences about, yeah, this is translation procedures and translation technique. What is the difference? Yeah, I need also discussion because when I have my final exam, sidang terbuka, we called here. Yeah, my professor asked this. What is the difference between procedures and techniques? I mean, procedures by Newmark and technique by Molina Albir, said it.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Anas, for the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we speak of translation procedure, we are referring to the whole text. So we could use the procedure when we will be translating the whole text. For example, the whole movie, the whole script, or the source text. While technique, we are referring to ways. Okay, so maybe we can use this ways when we are making transcription of sentences, for example, phrases or words. So we can apply the techniques, but actually they are almost the same when it comes to translation. But for Newmark, he was very particular of introducing the different procedures and different methods. So when we speak of procedure, again, we are referring to the whole text. And then for the technique, it refers to the ways on how we are going to translate. So although they are almost the same, but Newmark here, I think, is trying to make use of the procedures when he is trying to translate the whole text. So you will be using the different procedures you have that I have introduced, or Newman had introduced for us, or the procedures, I mean. And then the technique, so when you are referring to smaller, like for sentences or for words, you can make use of that. That's all.
Okay, that's clear, Miss Aulia. Yeah, that's procedures more general. I mean that when we treat the text of maybe a source text that we want to translate, we think that is in a whole problem, whole
The whole concept.
text.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the technique, it's in the micro aspects, like from sentence, from phrase, or from word, yeah, or poems. That is okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. She said that. Yeah, that is the first question. Maybe the other question. Yeah, actually, all method, technique, strategy is talking about how the translation face against the constraints of the translation. They find any solution. Like when we do that, our translation, we try to find the best solution. That is called convene. Even they have very specific term each other. Hello, the another. Oh no, it's just like another Miss Saniato, another reminding. Okay. Hello. What are the others? Yeah. To just cut, maybe they prepare about the question. This. Yes. Okay. Who is that? Okay. Time for you. Ada? Oh, this is. Okay, I will read another questions that Fatur Rahman, S.Pd, PI, from Mandalika University of Education. Wow, great. Thank you so much for being part of this international lectures. Is there any correlation between translation techniques or procedures and method? Yeah, correlations about relationship. That is.
Thank you for the question. So the question is there any correlation between technique, translation technique, procedure, and method? Yes, there is. Their purpose is simply to translate the text into the target language. So their correlation is to have a faithful translation or rendition of the word from the source language into the target language. So that is one of their connections, or relationship. So their main purpose, they have just, even though they differ in ways or manners on how to translate the word, but still they have one focus, and that is to translate the text from the source language into the target language. So I think that is the correlation between those terms. And then, sir, there is another question here. I will read. Okay, the question says, if you can read, is there any technique or what's this? And it was deleted. So there was a
I
question
guess
a while
I
ago.
read, yeah. I guess I read the question. It was how to
ma'am.
use computer skill in translation appropriately.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so how are we going to use our computer skills in making a translation? So first we have to know first the do's and don'ts when we are using the social media, for example. So when we are doing the translation, so especially if we are just borrowing those words, we really have to cite the source that we did use. So that's one way that we have to remember. We have to give respect or due respect. We have to cite where did we get that rendition or what apps did we use, and then let us always remember that not all the translation that is generated from an apps is sometimes true to the meaning of the text. So let us also remember to analyze the structure, the content of the word. So that's why it's very important that we must have a thorough background of the culture of both the source language and of course the target language. Because if we will not be aware of those cultures, sometimes we could not grasp the difference, or let's say the distortion of the meaning rendered, which is generated from an apps in a computer. Okay, so that's all, ma'am.
Yes. Is there any others question? But is it clear? Okay, thank you
It's
very
clear,
much.
sir. Ma'am, me personally also have a question to you. So, sometimes when we want to learn language, so we must translate our native language to the other language, like the foreign language that we want to learn, especially when we want to learn it individually. And also we need the tools or resources to enhance our translation skills. But as you said previously, sometimes we must be careful with the source that we use online, because sometimes it's not authentic translated, and sometimes it sounds weird to the native speaker. So if you could recommend us as the beginners in translation field, so what are some useful tools or resources that you can recommend it to us as the beginners? That's it.
Okay, as I said, actually there is no best tool for that. So it depends again on the nature of the text that you are trying to translate. But what is a friendly user is the Google Translate. Okay, then there is another one. I forget what's that apps. It starts with the letter L. Limba. The term I could not remember anymore.
Deep L.
But
It's Deep L.
yeah.
Is it Deep
Yeah,
L?
that's right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Okay. I forget that word. Okay, so maybe for beginners, you can do that one. You start more from the less complex one. So maybe you can use Google Translate, which is easy to understand or easy to use, friendly user. And then if you can look also for others, that would be good. But I suggest that you must start first with friendly user apps, so that you will not find it complicated in manipulating the data and manipulating the translation that will be generated by the apps.
I see. Thank you so much, Mom.
Okay, is there any other questions?
here we also have the other questions, sir.
Okay.
In the room.
Right. Oh yeah, this is still from Patroman that I forgot to read this, that based on the research from the Nature survey, that researchers found that more than 25% use AI to help them write manuscript. And then more than 15 use of technology to help them write a grant proposals. I mean, it's it about writing or translation? I couldn't clear more. Maybe Miss Hazel can read it. It's a translation or writing. I don't know what. Not clearly enough. Yeah.
Okay, I will read, Dr. Anna. So based on research from a Nature survey, researchers found that more than 25% use artificial intelligence to help them write manuscripts, and that more than 15% use the technology to help them write grant proposals. So it seems here that, okay, researchers are really dependent on artificial intelligence, so artificial knowledge. So usually these are knowledge are generated from computers, right? Okay, so also I don't know how to answer this, but I do agree with this, that we are now into a digital era and we are dependent sometimes on artificial intelligence. So we those who are trying to make, for example, translation, researching, are just using artificial intelligence. They are generating knowledge from the source web, or from the different apps that they are trying to use. So this is very, very let's say it's now happening nowadays. So I myself is also sometimes dependent on artificial intelligence, especially if we don't have the time anymore to do researching because of our busy schedule. So we opted to just, okay, open the net and then type the word, key in the word, and then everything will be provided to you. So however, let us remember that there are fake news. So as what has been said a while ago by our by one of our participants here, that knowledge is just on the tips of our fingers, but we have to make sure to look for an authentic source. So we have to be very careful of the fake news. Okay, so we have to choose the authentic website or site that we can get information with. So that's it. I do agree with that, almost, especially our young researchers, are very dependent on AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that is the answer. Okay, other questions? Oh yeah, selfie. Miss Selfie.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. Okay. My name is Melinda, but I use my friend's account for this meeting.
Linda, can you
So,
on cam? So Miss Hazel will see who you are really.
okay, sir. Okay. So my question is, what are some strategies to overcome the issue of cultural nuances when translating a text from, example, from Japanese to English, particularly in a business context?
Wow, there's yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Miss Hazel.
I missed some of the words.
Yeah, she asked about the
Can you please
strategy.
repeat the question? Okay.
Okay, the strategy implication on translating cultural terms in any text with
Okay.
with the,
Strategies on
with the genre of business. It has been culturally and with genre of business. Yeah, it's like maybe in that area, maybe Wonosobo, right? Wonosobo or Temanggung. There is a lot of foreign businessmen. Now they come to that place, and that sometimes, yeah, it's so difficult to fight against this like technical term in business, and also correlate to the cultural
Yeah,
terms.
technical terms.
Yeah, yeah, that is.
So I think the best thing that we can, yeah, thank you for the for explaining it, sir. Maybe I suggest that if you are a beginner and then you are trying to translate culture terms and then business terms, technical words, if you could not grasp the correct word or appropriate or equivalent word for that, maybe you can do paraphrasing, or maybe you can do borrowing. You borrow the word, and then, or you adapt the word, so you borrow the word. So when you borrow the word, meaning you can use it as it is, and then maybe you can just enclose it in quotation mark, or and then make an additional information there explaining. You can use that skill. So you can do borrowing, you can do adaptive, if there are really, if these terms are really cultured bound terms. Now for business, since these are technical terms, you may use the terms if there is no equivalent terms in it in a target language. So it's very common. So you can, or we call that loan words. In the Philippines, or in English, we call that as loan words. So we are borrowed words. We can borrow the term if we could not grasp the right or appropriate term in the target language. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mom.
Yes.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, another question. Yeah, that is great. That if you have more difficulties, more constraints, translation, paraphrasing is the solution. Amplification maybe, or description, or substitution, or addition.
Yes, yes.
But please
You
don't
can do
forget to be
paraphrasing,
faithful.
description.
Maybe I have some question, Miss Hazel. Do you think that
Yes,
should
Doctor.
we be more faithful to the source text? That sometimes we do much about amplifications, much on description or paraphrase. It could reduce the originality of the source text.
Yes.
What do you think of this?
Yes. So I do agree with that that the main purpose of translation is to render the text in its original form. So meaning we have to translate the text as much as possible. You have to be very faithful to the source language, meaning whatever is the content of the language or the message of the source language, that will be carried through in the target language. Sometimes, since we are doing the description, the paraphrasing, we are into distorting the original source or content of the text. So meaning our faithfulness to the original text is also disrupted, meaning to say there is a tendency that we might be getting out of the context. So there is a tendency that the faithfulness of the rendition might be out of the context anymore and out of the culture of that word. So that's also the problem of paraphrase as a technique in translation. I hope, Dr. Ines, I had shared something.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, okay, another question. Yeah, that is why I call translation is difficult sometimes, because
Yeah,
we must be faithful.
Yeah.
But we must to share knowledgeable, easy
and
to understand. Yeah.
And it is not just learned by an hour or by one day, for example. Translation must be practiced. So we have to practice translating. It cannot be mastered in just one setting, in just one day, in just 1 week. No, you have to keep on practicing. You have to keep on reading and then practice that into writing, put that into writing, so that we will have a skill, especially in terms of having that faithful translation, because translation could not be just translated in just a wink of an eye. It could not be it could not be done in magic. You have to think, you have to research on the culture of this of the target language, and you must have also a thorough knowledge of the source language. So you, as the speaker, for example, of the source language, you must have a thorough language of your own language that will be translated to the different to the target language. So it's a vice versa. So it takes two to tango. You have to learn the culture of the source language, and of course this culture of the target language, for you to have a faithful translation of rendition of the translation in the target language. Dr. Anas?
Yes, wow, great. Yeah, that is, yeah, translation cannot be do like a magic. Yeah, that is the big point. We need a process. We need a step
We
by
need to
step.
analyze.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to read, we need to analyze. Okay, so those are the things
Okay.
that we must remember.
Yeah. Another question, please. We still have a time, I think. Yeah, maybe we
Here,
can.
sir
Okay.
and mom. So in the chat, in the room chat, actually Alia has typed the question. She said that she is a newbie in the translation word, and could you please share the tips, if you have any tips for the beginners, how to be a good translator, like from your own tips. That's the question from Alia in the room chat.
Yeah,
So
okay.
tips on how you are going to be a good translator, as what has been mentioned in the presentation. So I do agree that we must equip ourselves with a thorough background of the source language and of course the target language. So the first thing that we must do for us to be a good translator is we must be a good reader, and you must develop your comprehension skills. So you have to master your analysis of the text. So once you are a good reader, you develop mastery of the comprehension. Once you can comprehend, you can translate the message of the text into the target language. Because if you were doing the word for word translation, sometimes you are distorting the meaning of the whole text. Word for word translation is just good only for a word translation or a phrase translation, but it's not applicable for the whole text. So what you're going to do, develop first your reading skills and your comprehension skills, because even though you will not be consulting any apps or any or let's say any computer apps wherein that will help you in translating, but if you do have the good preparation in terms of reading skills, then you can be a good translator. So reading skills and writing skills, and then you have really to practice. As I said, it could not just be done in one night or in one day or in one, sometimes one whole semester, Dr. Anas, will not be enough for a translation skills to master. So it's really sometimes the skill. Yeah, so you have to develop the skill. So you have to practice writing, translating. So you have to practice translating, and then maybe you can check that in any apps if your rendition of the translation is correct, or the same with that in let's say in other apps generated. So you can compare. So but what you are going to do is really practice. Practice makes you perfect. Instant correct practice will make you perfect later on.
Yes, that's
I hope
great.
I have answered.
Totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, there is someone who raised the hand. Is Azalea, yeah? Have a question?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have a
Mas,
question.
yeah. Okay, Mas Azalea. Okay, you have times for yours.
All right, so my question is, what are the factors that influence the choice of translation method for a given text type and purpose?
It's too quick, Mas. Yeah. Repeat.
Sorry.
Repeat. Sorry. Okay, please.
Let me repeat the question. What are the factors that influence the choice of translation method for a given text type and purpose?
Okay, so what are the factors that you have to consider? You have to consider first the type of text that you are going to, or the source text that you are going to translate. Is it poetry? Is it a novel, for example? Is it a speech, or is it? So you have to know the genre of the text that you are going to translate, because the genre will help you decide on what strategy or methods you are going to use, or the techniques that you are going to use, because identifying the genre of your source text to your target language will be very helpful for you in choosing the appropriate, although there is no best method or procedures or technique that will apply to all, but by knowing the genre of the source text or the target text that you are, target language that you are going to have the translation will help you. Okay, I hope I have answered your question, Zaria. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Is it clear, yeah, Mas
Thank you very
Azaria?
much.
Yeah, knowing the genre. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is very unique. One day, for example, I give in bahasa ya, Miss Hazel. One day. One day itu in bahasa suatu hari ya. But when we for the children story misalnya, the children story, we said it's okay. We just say that suatu hari si kancil. But if we want to make it horror story, like a mystery story, suatu hari yang yang gelap, yang menyeramkan. Now we add more word addition technique to make it more acceptable for your target of reader. So that method comes based on what kind of text or discourse you will translate. Yeah, this is what I can get so far, Mas. Okay. Yeah, translation is unique, interesting, but quite difficult. Okay, practice and keeping motivated in any situation. Okay, we still have time, yeah, right? Maybe another questions. Okay, I check. No one raised the hand. And okay, Mr. Rifai, maybe have some taking some suggestion from Ms. Hazel to our department. I mean that for the teaching, maybe teaching translations more effectively or efficiently in any case.
Yes, that's my question, Miss.
Okay.
How to teach translation effectively and efficiently, and also how's the situation of your students learning in translation there in Capsu?
Actually, sir, our students also have a hard time doing the translation. As I said, it could not be mastered sometimes even in one semester. So our students have difficulty grasping for words, for the equivalency of the words. So it is because they have a very minimal vocabulary. So although they are very good in English sometimes, but they could not render the faithful translation of the word. So what they are trying to use, as what Dr. Anas had said, paraphrasing, description of the word, they're trying to describe the word, which sometimes distort the meaning of the word, and faithfulness of the translation is being forgotten. So they are also having hard time here. So that's why I considered practice as really one of the best thing that can improve reading, and then practice translating. So as my strategy, every weekend I give an assignment. I give an assignment for them to to do during their weekend practice translating. It comes first from word, from phrases to sentences before they then to paragraph. I am not giving them right away a whole, for example, a whole script. Like let's say, for example, a whole story to translate. No, they will have an overload information for that. So what I did is I start from the very basics, sir. I give them assignments or reinforcement drills starting from words. I believe that words is really the building blocks of everything. So I started from words, the translation of those words in English, in our dialect, which is Hiligaynon, from Filipino as our national language, then from the international language, English. So that is usually what I did during my translation class. I do not write away. Maybe the whole description of the story or the novel or the short story will be their final exam. So it comes at the end. So I start from the basic to a more complex one. Thank you, Dr. Noor.
Yeah. Okay, that is Mr. Rifai. Yeah, that's translation sometimes problematic. And then the student will go, if they feel so difficult and frustrating. But based on the teacher's strategy, they will fight maybe about the constraints or difficulty. Any comment, Mr. Rifai?
Miss Astrid seems to have questions.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, please, Mr. Astrid. Miss Astrid, you have
Actually, no. Okay, Pak Rifai, you are playing on me. Okay, so
you have to be burned.
you said besides, yeah?
yeah, of course, I'm burned already in red. Okay, Miss Hazel, actually, so it's interesting about the translation procedures and technique that you spoke about earlier. However, I'm intrigued on your idea about using the Google Translation and even DeepL. How in our what is it, surrounding as a translation, we manage our best to prevent the use of Google Translation. What do you think about it? Because you said earlier, beginner can use Google Translation, but me myself as let's say a practitioner, yeah.
Yes. Maybe, ma'am, the Google Translation can be helpful to our novice translators in terms of checking when they are doing the practice by their own selves. So when they are doing the translation by themselves, maybe they can check via Google Translators if the rendition is somewhat similar, so they can have at least they can grasp an idea whether they are doing it well if nobody is supervising them.
Yeah, because in our case, even they use Google Translate for speaking, for writing. Yeah, before they share their opinion, they do it first in the Google Translate so that they can speak in English.
Yeah, ma'am.
I
So
don't know
everything is
about
now AI,
your
artificial
case.
intelligence. In our case, students are also doing that. Sometimes when you are
Okay.
asking them, they will just first search in their cell phone. They search the web to give you the answer. Sometimes I said, "Oops, you have to close your phone. You have to place your phone inside your bag because before answering, they will check first." So they are very dependent on AI, artificial intelligence, ma'am. So they will just depend on whatever generated information that Google can or any surfing and or website that can offer them the answer. So critical thinking sometimes is forgotten or not developed anymore because of the dependency of our students in terms of artificial intelligence. Although we could not really deny the fact that AI is very helpful to us, but I think we must also regulate the use of it. So in order that our students could develop critical thinking. the reflective thinking, because if we will allow them to be dependent on that, so maybe we could not develop anymore their confidence, especially their critical thinking skills, because every time you will ask them, okay, wait, ma'am, I have to search it. Okay, so something like that, ma'am. And Astrid.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the answer and the idea.
Yeah. Okay. The issue of Google Translate. Any others? Maybe another question? Or
Here, sir, Fatur Rahman Imran is raising his hand.
okay. Yeah, Mr. Patrahman.
Okay, thank you for the times. Salam kenal semua.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the times. My name is Fatur Rahman Imran from Mandalika University of Education, one of the alumnus of Ahmad Dahlan University at 2010. Okay. I have a question that is dealing to the procedures or translation methods dealing to the I'm still confused about the semantic translations and communicative translation. Could you give the explanation more details about them? Thank you. That is simple questions. Thank you.
So semantic translation and communicative
translations.
translation. Okay, so speaking of semantic translation, the focus is more on the author. So the source language. So semantic, you're concerned most of the time. Your focus is on the faithfulness of the text, especially of the author's text. So our focus there is more on the author, not on the aesthetic effect of the translation to the reader or to our target reader. So semantic, it is more of forms that we are still following, or yes, we are still true to the structure, especially on the structure that is used by the author in the source text or the source language. And while communicative, it is more on the aesthetic effect of the translation to the readers. Sometimes you are deviating on the structure. Your focus there is not anymore on the author, but rather on your readers, on your target readers. So your main goal is for them to understand what you are trying to translate. Though sometimes you are not any more faithful to the source text or source language, especially on the content, on the structure that the author is trying to portray in that particular text, sir.
It's mean that is semantic translations. Sorry. It's mean that is semantic translation is focused on source language emphasizes, and communicative translation is focused on target language emphasizes.
Semantic translation is focused more on the, as
source
I said,
language.
on the author, on the source language, meaning the content of the text is still present in the target languge.
Okay. Thank you for the
Okay.
answers.
While when we speak of communication, it is more on trying to communicate the message, but not anymore focusing on the structure as it is in the target language, but the main purpose is the meaning of the word, sir.
Okay.
Or the
I
text
see.
language.
Okay, I see. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. About the method, they are all dynamic. Yeah. Right, Miss Hazel. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions? Hello. Test. Sorry, I couldn't hear anything here.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Dr. Anas. You're loud and
Oh,
clear.
yeah. Okay. So clear. Yeah. Okay, should we stop or another questions? Okay, look at no other question. I think that's all for today. So judges all and more motivated, I think, to be a good translator later. For me, thank you so much for giving me chance to be a moderator today. Can wait to the next another discussion, maybe to invite me more to be moderate. Moderate means in the middle. Like in a method of translation, we must be moderate. Stay not too more left, focus on source text, or more focus on target text. Must be moderate, means balance. Okay, thank you so much. And
Thank you, Dr. Anas.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Miss Hazel. Nice to see you. Very nice. Maybe we can discuss.
It's nice meeting you all.
How to get the slide for the materials? Thank you.
Okay, I'll be sending. Yes, sir. I'll be sending the slides to
Okay.
Ma'am
Thank you.
Inside
Thank you.
later.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, I will be sending it. Thank you for your indulgence. Thank you for the questions. And thank you also for listening. I hope you have learned something and refreshed with those things that we had in our college days, especially when we are in our bachelor's degree.
Yes, right. I give it back the session to the Master of Ceremony.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Anas, and maraming salamat po, Ma'am Hazel. That was an interesting topic, clear explanation, and the new insight for us. So the next agenda is the documentation section, and I would like to invite all of you to open your camera. And this documentation section will be handled by the operator. So for the operator, time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. So for the participant, please open your camera. And then after that, I'll be counting from 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the first slide, first, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the next slide, the second slide.
Pak Purkon itu.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much for the participant and thank you so much for Ma'am Hazel.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invite.
Pagkiki kita.
Iyo, makita kita.
Reoni nih, Reoni. Arilia sama Purkon.
Mana alumni yang kelihatan?
Mana alumni 2010 nih, Bu Arilia Trioga.
And thank you, Ma'am Hazel. Wish you can join again the next invitation.
It will be my pleasure, sir. I hope we can also invite you here in Capsule. We will be arranging also seminars like this, webinars like this.
See,
We will also invite, we will also invite some user.
Really wait for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
everyone.
Dr.
Nice to
You,
meet you
bye.
virtually.
Live ya.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Abbas. Mr. Anas.
Thank
Ya,
you.
bye-bye. Lama nggak main ke UAD nih.
Iya.
Apa nanti saya main? Pak Cipto mana ini? Pak Cipto nih. Di sini ada ini.
sir, I think I need to close the section first. Sorry.
Oh ya ya, so sorry ya ya. Need to stop formally ya.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our last agenda today. I am Tanya, representing all of the committees. Would like to say thank you so much for your participation, and I do apologize for the inconvenience. I hope this webinar will be useful for all of you, and let's close our event today by reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, and see you in the next international guest lecture that will be held on the 3rd of November 2023. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr.
Waalaikumsalam
Thank you.
warahmatullahi
Terima kasih.
everyone.
Ya.
Thank you. Thank you, Mami Kisai. Thank you. Can I leave the link now? Maraming salamat. Thank you. Madamong salamat in our higayon here in Capiz.
Oh, in Philippines ya.
Hope to see you again in future webinars like this. Dr. Anas, nice meeting you. Mami
Ya,
Kisai.
see you another occasion.
Okay. Bye-bye. I will leave the link now. Thank you.
Yes. Oke, izin leave Pak I, Bu Sri. Oh, sudah semua Pak.